These are 12 inventions that were discovered completely by accident. 12 mistakes that changed the world. Let's begin. Number 1. Penicillin. A scientist left a dish out, mold grew on it, and it became the medicine that saved millions of lives. In 1928, a scientist came back from holiday to a big messy pile of dishes. One dish looked ruined. A fuzzy spot of mold had landed on it. He was about to throw it away. But wait, Alexander Fleming did not throw it away. He looked closer. All around the mold, the tiny germs had died, leaving a clear, empty ring. Something in that mold was fighting them. The mold made a natural germ-fighting chemical called penicillin. It could kill the tiny germs that make people sick, but it left your own body safe and sound. Before this, even a small cut could make people very ill, and doctors had no good way to help. Fleming found it, but he could not make enough to use. Years later, two scientists, Howard Florey and Ernst Chain, found a way to grow lots of it. By 1945, this medicine was helping people all over the world. It has saved millions and millions of lives. And the funniest part, Fleming was famously messy. If he had tidied up, that lucky mold might never have saved so many lives. Number 2. The microwave oven. A radar engineer noticed a chocolate bar had melted right in his pocket. Meet Percy Spencer. He worked next to a big machine that made invisible radio waves. One day, standing close by, he felt something odd in his pocket. His chocolate bar had melted into warm, sticky goo. Percy did not throw it away. He wondered, a circumflex euros, did those invisible waves melt his snack? So he set some popcorn kernels near the machine. One by one, they burst into fluffy white puffs. Next he tried an egg. It got so hot it burst all over his friend's face. The waves make the tiny drops of water inside food jiggle super fast, and all that jiggling makes heat. The year was 1945. Just like that, Percy had found a brand new way to cook. Soon his idea grew into the microwave oven, and today you find one in kitchens almost everywhere. But the very first microwave stood almost 6 feet tall and weighed about 750 pounds, a circumflex euros, as big and heavy as a fridge. Number 3. X-rays. A strange glow let a scientist take a photograph of the bones inside his own hand. In a dark room, a scientist switched on a tube he had wrapped in thick black card. No light could escape. But a few feet away, a little coated screen began to glow all by itself. The scientist was Wilhelm Tilde paragraph Ntgen. This was 1895. He waved his hand, moved the screen, and still it glowed. Some hidden ray was flying through the cardboard. He named it X, a circumflex euros, the sign for a mystery. He held up his hand in the ray, a circumflex euros, and saw his own bones. The ray slips right through soft skin, but hard bone blocks it. So bones show up as dark shadows. Suddenly doctors could look inside the body without cutting at all. They could find a broken bone right in a picture. This same idea later grew into the big scanners hospitals use now. Tilde paragraph Ntgen won the very first Nobel Prize in Physics in 1901. A few weeks later, he took a picture of his wife's hand, wedding ring and all. She saw her own bones and gasped in wonder. Today's machines use tiny, safe amounts to help people every day. Number 4. Safety glass. A dropped flask cracked but refused to shatter, and now it protects every car window. In 1903, a French scientist named Tilde Douard Tilde copyright Tilde copyright dictus knocked a glass flask off a high shelf. Everybody knew exactly what would happen next. Glass falls, and glass smashes into 100 tiny sharp pieces. But this flask did something really strange. It cracked into a spiderweb of thin lines, and then, somehow, it just held together. Not one sharp piece flew away. B A tilde copyright N A tilde copyright Dictus picked it up and stared, amazed. So he looked closer to find out why. The flask had once held a clear liquid plastic, and it had dried into a thin, see-through skin inside. That skin was gluing all the broken bits together. Around that time, he read something sad. In car crashes, people were being hurt by sharp flying glass. So he had a bright idea. Put a layer of that clear plastic between two sheets of glass. Now when the glass cracks, the plastic holds every sharp piece still. Today this same safety glass sits in car windows all around the world, keeping millions of people safe, all because of one lucky broken flask. Number 5. Super glue. A glue turned down twice for being far too sticky until someone realized that was the whole point. In 1942, a chemist named Harry Coover made a glue that stuck to everything it touched. His tools stuck. His table stuck. It was a sticky mess, so he threw it away. Harry was trying to make clear plastic for the lenses in special equipment. Instead, he got a glue that gripped like nothing before. Nobody knew what it was good for, so they forgot all about it. 9 years later, a scientist named Fred Joyner tried the glue again. He dabbed a little between two glass blocks and pressed. They stuck fast. Pull as they might, the blocks would not come apart. This time Harry saw how special it was. The glue turns hard the instant it meets tiny bits of water, and there is a little water on almost everything, even on your skin. That is why it grabs so fast. By 1958, it was sold in stores as super glue. The same man found it twice, 9 years apart, before he saw how useful it was. It is so strong it can stick your fingers together, so leave this one to the grown-ups. Number 6. Teflon. A gas cylinder that seemed empty was slippery inside and became the world's first non-stick coating. A young scientist named Roy Plunkett opened a metal tank of gas, but nothing came out. That was very strange. The tank still felt heavy and full, as if the gas was hiding inside. It was 1938 in America. Plunkett was really trying to make a new gas to keep fridges cold. Puzzled, he grabbed a saw and cut the tank wide open. Inside, instead of gas, he found a waxy white powder. The gas had magically turned itself into a brand new kind of plastic. When he rubbed it, his fingers slipped right off. It was the most slippery stuff anyone had ever touched. Almost nothing could stick to it, and nothing could break it apart. He named the slippery powder Teflon. But the frying pan came much later. A French man named Marc Gras first put Teflon on his fishing line. Then, in 1954, his wife Colette said, "Why not put it on a pan?" And it worked. Now an egg can slide around the pan with no oil at all, and cleaning up is easy. One heavy tank of stuck gas changed kitchens everywhere. Number 7. The pacemaker. The wrong-sized part made a tiny circuit pulse, exactly like a beating heart. Back in 1956, Wilson Greatbatch was building a little machine to listen to a heartbeat. He reached into a box of parts, grabbed the wrong piece, and soldered it in without even noticing. Then something strange happened. The circuit did not just listen. It began tapping out a rhythm all by itself. A tap, then a pause, then a tap again, just like a real beating heart. Wilson stared at it in total surprise. Some people have hearts that beat too slowly, and that can make them very tired. Wilson knew his tiny circuit could help. It gives the heart a gentle electric tap to keep it beating at just the right speed. For years he made it smaller and safer. In 1960, a doctor named William Chardek gently placed one inside a person for the very first time. Now it could do its quiet work from right inside the chest. Today, millions of people all around the world stay strong and happy thanks to this little helper. And it all began because one clever engineer grabbed the wrong tiny part out of a box. Number 8. Stainless steel. A pile of failed steel thrown onto the scrap heap simply refused to rust. Picture a heap of thrown-away metal, all of it rusty and brown. But one piece is still bright and shiny like new. Why did that one never rust? The year was 1913 in Sheffield, England. A metal maker named Harry Brearley was mixing steel for stronger tools that get very hot. In each batch he added a little more of a metal called chromium. The batches he didn't like got tossed on a scrap pile and forgotten. Weeks went by and rain fell. Most of the metal turned rusty and brown, but the pieces with chromium still shone like new silver. Here is the secret. Chromium gives the steel an invisible skin, far too thin to see. Scratch it and the skin heals itself, blocking rust before it can even start. Soon this metal became knives, forks, sinks, and doctors' tools that stay clean and shiny. Brearley first called it rustless steel, but a friend liked a catchier name, so today we call it stainless steel. Number 9. Velcro. Sticky burrs clinging to a dog's fur on a walk in the woods became hook and loop. Back in the 1940s, a Swiss engineer named George de Mestral came home from a walk in the mountains, covered in prickly little seeds. His dog was covered in them too, and they would not brush off. Instead of getting annoyed, George got curious. Why did these little burrs cling so hard? So he put one under a microscope. And there was the secret. The burr was covered in hundreds of tiny, bendy hooks. Each hook grabbed the soft loops in his clothes and his dog's fur. So George had an idea. What if he made 2 strips A-circumflex euros, one covered in hooks, one in loops A-circumflex euros that stick together, then peel apart? It took him about 10 years to get it right, using strong nylon. Press them together and they hold tight. Pull them apart and you can use them over and over. Soon his invention was on shoes, jackets, bags, and backpacks A-circumflex euros. No laces needed. Astronauts even use it to keep things from floating away in space. He called it Velcro A-circumflex euros, a mix of 2 French words for velvet and hook. And no, astronauts did not invent it. It all started with a curious man, his dog, and a walk full of sticky little seeds. Number 10. Post-it notes. A glue too weak to be useful until someone needed a bookmark that would stay put. In 1968, a chemist named Spencer Silver was trying to make the strongest glue ever, something tough enough for airplanes. Instead, he made the weakest glue you could imagine. It only stuck a tiny bit. Press it down and it held, but peel it off and it left no mess at all. And you could stick it down again and again. Everyone thought this weak glue was a useless mistake, so they set it aside. 6 years later, another scientist at the same company, Art Fry, was singing in his choir. His little paper bookmarks kept sliding out of his songbook and getting lost. One day, Art remembered that funny weak glue. He dabbed a little on his bookmarks, and now they stayed put, then peeled off without tearing a single page. The secret is tiny sticky balls, so only a bit touches the paper. That simple note grew into the Post-it, sold in dozens of countries. And its famous bright yellow color. That was an accident too. The lab next door just happened to have some scrap yellow paper lying around, so that is what they used. Number 11. The Slinky. A spring was knocked off a shelf and instead of just falling, it walked. Watch closely. A metal spring tips off a shelf, but it does not just fall to the floor. It flips forward, coil over coil, and walks itself down a tall stack of books, step by step. The man watching was Richard James, an engineer working with springs back in 1943. The story goes he was trying to keep instruments steady on a rocking ship. Then one spring slipped off the shelf, and instead of dropping, it strolled across the floor. Richard could not believe his eyes. So he spent a whole year testing metal after metal. He needed the perfect spring, loose enough to tumble, strong enough to keep walking down the stairs again and again. His wife Betty flipped through a dictionary and picked the perfect name, Slinky. At a big store in Philadelphia, people lined up to watch it tumble. All 400 toys sold out in about 90 minutes. Since that day, hundreds of millions of Slinkies have been sold around the world. Teachers even use them to show how waves travel. Not bad for a spring that simply would not sit still. Number 12. The Popsicle. An 11-year-old left his fruity soda outside on a freezing night and forgot all about it. The story goes that more than 100 years ago, a boy named Frank Epperson mixed sweet fizzy powder into a cup of water. He stirred it with a wooden stick, then ran off to play and forgot all about it. He left the cup outside on the porch. That night the air turned very cold. Slowly, the drink began to freeze, right around the little wooden stick. Frank was fast asleep and had no idea. In the morning, Frank grabbed the stick and pulled. Out slid a solid lump of frozen fruit ice. Because it was frozen around the stick, he could hold it and lick it without freezing his fingers. Years later, Frank sold his frozen treat and people loved it. Today, these fruity ice pops are cooling kids all over the world, especially on hot summer days. In 1924, he made his icy treat official. At first, Frank named it after himself, the Epsicle, but his own children kept asking for Popsicle, and that is how the Popsicle got its name.